Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, WeatherTech, Hum by Verizon, RockAuto.com, State Farm, and Autotempest.com. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
And thank you, Alec Webb. Welcome to MotorWeek, podcast number 178. I'm John Davis, and joining me here around our table in Studio C is writer-producer Brian Robinson.
What's up, John?
Road test producer Ben Davis.
Back at you, John.
Assistant road test producer Greg Carlos.
Hello.
Our over-the-edge reporter, Zach Maskell.
Hey, John.
Has granted us his attendance. Thank you,
you
Zach.
mu-
Nice
thank
to
you
have
much.
you with us.
Appreciate it.
Okay,
thank
we've
you.
got a lightning round, a viewer question. We're going to hear from Zach in just a few minutes, too. A rant and rave, maybe. Zach?
I got one.
You got one? Okay, we got a couple around the table. That's good.
Good surprise.
First, let's hop on to some of the vehicles that we've been testing lately and been to previews for. We just had in a pair of Cadillacs, and don't everybody go to sleep on us right now. Their big car, their current flagship called the CT6. Both cars that we had in, each one had a different high-tech feature. One was a plug-in hybrid. It's actually the only Cadillac right at the moment that's being imported from China. And the other was a CT6 with their new semi-autonomous driving system called Super Cruise. We can take them both together or separately. Any comments about these two vehicles? We want to start with the plug-in hybrid?
Yeah, because I didn't really spend much time with the Super Cruise, so I'll talk about the plug-in hybrid. A couple of things. It's actually a fairly large battery compared to like the German luxury plug-ins. You get over 30 miles of electric range, and it's seamless in the way it worked, I thought. And I was just in a CT6 this morning, and I forgot how it is a very luxurious car, and it's everything about it is very techy, almost like what Acura's going for,
right.
10, 15 years ago, that seamless blend of luxury and technology. I think they definitely pulled that off. The interesting thing, while I was over at the Cadillac dealership, I was talking to the sales manager about the plug-in. He said he has not ordered one and doesn't have plans on ordering one unless someone comes in with money begging for one, because he sees like no market for one. So that's neither here nor there, but anyway.
I think we've actually heard the same thing from Mercedes dealers as well, that they have not had much success selling their PHEVs. And I think part of the problem is in this country, it seems like a lot of premium to pay for 30 miles worth of electric range, and gas is cheap. In Europe, everybody's gearing up for these, and in China too, because they're anticipating more and more cities basically saying you can't drive an internal combustion engine into the city during certain hours of the day, if at all.
And as mentioned, it is built in China, so it's really for their market more than ours.
Yeah. Any other comment?
I'm definitely not surprised to hear what you just said, Brian. I mean, that was actually going to be one of my questions, was kind of, what's the market looking like for this vehicle and what are they expecting? So that's not really surprising to me.
I think with the exception of something like a Chevy Volt, the plug-in hybrids just have not done well. Even Toyota hasn't done well with their PHEV Prius, I don't believe. On the other hand, we also had a CT6 in here with Super Cruise, and we've been hearing about GM's answer to autonomous driving for about 3 years. What Super Cruise is, it's both less and more than a lot of the other semi-autonomous systems. Super Cruise is a system that works only if the highway has been pre-programmed into the car, meaning it's a 4-lane, limited access, interstate type highway. And if it is, and the car can tell by GPS it's on that road, you can take your hands off the steering wheel and you can literally put them in your lap or fiddle with your phone as long as you don't look down too much. There is an infrared camera that's watching your eyesight. It wants to know you're still pretty much looking ahead, and if you start looking down too much or having a conversation with someone else and looking away from the road, lights start going off and the system will deactivate. But if you're looking for a system that, like regular cruise control, gives you a break on the road where it's not just your foot is resting, but your hands as well. It seems to work very well. I drove about 75 miles with my hands in my lap. It gets a little boring after a while, and it works pretty well. It kind of gets close to corners a little bit. So I think it's an interesting system. At least you weren't having to put your hands back on the steering wheel every 30 seconds.
So you said if you're not looking up, then it shuts off.
If
like,
you
what do
are
you mean
looking,
by,
if
what do you
you've
mean
got,
by shuts off?
If you,
like if you're heading towards a corner, it disengages and now you're going straight off the road, or what?
No, it starts. Well, it starts as a green light at the top of the steering wheel. It starts flashing. There's other lights that flash. It's giving you a warning that basically you need to start paying attention. If you raise your head up, start looking ahead again, everything goes back to normal. If you ignore it, it will eventually shut down, pull off to the side of the road and shut down.
Oh, it pulls off to the side of the road and shuts down.
I actually didn't have it do that, but that's what they said.
Yeah, I was just expecting it to turn off.
It tells you to get out of the car.
No.
It
It doesn't just leave you stranded on the
In
road.
true Cadillac fashion, it'll rumble your seat bottom and stuff, so it's pretty alarming pretty quick. I remember when we had it in, the roads were extremely salty, and it took me a while to get it to engage.
Yes, that's correct.
But when it did do it easily, and it was amazing.
I think we have to put it in context to all the other systems. It doesn't avoid construction. If there's something, if they're doing construction in the right-hand lane, it's not going to automatically move around it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't automatically pass in any way, shape, or form. It's what it is. It's cruise control without your hands on the steering wheel. Now, is that better or worse than the other autonomous systems where you've got to have your hands hovering near the wheel or resting on the wheel, which I find even more annoying than this?
It takes more attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is annoying.
I think, what was it I said, Brian, when I was telling you about when I went out and drove it? I was almost not afraid to use it. Something to that.
So say if you have like 10 miles of range and you engage it, and will it just let you drive and run out of gas?
I would assume
I don't
so.
see why it wouldn't.
I don't think that has anything to do with it.
I do think the LED readout in the steering wheel that gives you the status of the system probably should become standard, or the trade, whatever word I'm looking for. It should be what everybody.
Thing,
yeah,
It was
it's
right
foolproof.
there. It was foolproof, and it's right there.
Yeah, you don't have to look at nothing on the dash to
You
pop
can't
up.
put those leather wraps around the steering wheel, though.
So,
Oh, dude, I didn't think about that.
oh my gosh, you
the
found
fuzz-
a fault with
Or
it.
the fuzzy ones. That was even better.
Or you could start a market for them now, just with the cutout.
There was a AAA survey that came out recently that said that compared to 2 years ago, 78% of the drivers said that they were not interested in riding in a vehicle that drove itself. That number is now apparently 63%, so there's been some improvement. And the researchers likened that to the fact that people are starting to get used to some of the features like automatic braking and lane keep assist and stuff like that. So they're slowly warming to the idea. But I guess I'm still not sold that where we are with this technology makes a lot of sense at the moment.
I don't want to drive an autonomous car, but I want everyone else on the road driving one. That's a good way to put it.
Well, Porsche will never make one, so you're.
They already have the InnoDrive in Europe. Yeah.
Man.
I think
I
everybody's
sworn I heard
again.
somebody say they would never.
It's just like electric vehicles. Everybody feels like they've got to do it or get left behind.
I always turn off lane keep assist in every car I drive.
It's the most annoying thing ever
yeah,
invented.
it's the worst.
I like the automatic braking function because that basically it keeps you from being a total idiot.
I've had a couple times though where I'm coming around, a turn. There's
Oh,
a guardrail
and a
on
tree.
the turn, and it flashing, freaks me out. And I'm just cruising, and I know what I'm doing, and then it just goes off and randomly brakes. I mean, it's almost that function's almost caused a couple accidents.
I
for
actually
me.
had to turn it off, at least collision warning in the XF Sport Brake,
Yeah.
because it was too
Triggers
sensitive.
all the time. Too sensitive.
Yeah, I couldn't do anything. You couldn't get near a car with it without it going off.
Durango saved me yesterday. Coming, I know this isn't going to make any sense to listeners, but 140 and where 91 crosses, I'm heading towards the Beltway. Now somebody takes a left. Somebody comes down to the brakes to take a left on 91 instead of going through the shopping center to do it.
Yeah.
And just
Holy
hauling
smokes.
with traffic.
That's a no left turn, and there's a median and everything
And
else.
people
and
are going 60 miles an hour.
Yeah. it brought me down.
I bet it did.
Quick,
And that's
that split second where I wasn't paying the
that's what
adequate
it's
attention
for,
for
because
them.
you weren't doing anything wrong. I mean, you were paying attention.
Yeah.
And somebody did something totally
somebody else.
stupid.
And they did it right in the middle of. They didn't stop right where that light is.
Right.
They're out in the middle. So
should have got his license plate number. Robinson would have mandated that guy goes autonomous his whole life.
Good times, but I'm thankful for I was in that car at that time.
There you go.
I'd vote for you if that was ever a position.
Really?
Basically, you monitor, you police which
Autonomous
people
czar.
need to be.
All right, let's get back on track here.
Yeah,
No,
really.
no political
It's
campaigns.
silent majority.
2018 Ram 1500. Zach, you went on the preview, the most new Ram truck in decades.
Scottsdale, Arizona. It was nice to get some sun. I have a vitamin D deficiency, so that was pretty sweet. All new truck, new frame. The Ram shares all the underlyings with it as well. It hauls more, it gets better fuel economy. The biggest news is that in the limited version, it's got this big 12-inch touchscreen. It was really nice. It worked pretty well for us. It's got 4 more inches of room, so like the rear leg room is insane. I mean, you could have a party back there.
I'll be the judge of that.
Give it a shot, man. And then this e-torque is the newest thing.
Explain the.
Yeah, I was curious about that myself.
They're calling it a mild hybrid. We didn't drive
48
these
volt
trucks
electrical
there.
system.
48 volt electrical system. Basically, what they did was they replaced the alternator with this belt-driven motor/generator. And what that does is, this is optional, I believe, on
the 8, standard on the 6.
Right, and it adds 130 pound-feet to the 5.7 liter, and
Beef.
yeah, I mean, sweet. I wish we could have driven it. It's pretty cool. But
What they're after here is all of the truck manufacturers are determined to get the fuel economy crown.
Yeah.
At a time where most people don't seem to be caring that much about fuel economy, trucks, I think owners apparently are caring. So they're using that, and of course everybody's trying to do diesels, so it's a fuel economy thing. But more importantly, that 48 volts is going to open that new chassis up to a lot of new technology that basically 12 volts won't allow it. So I think that's a very bold move for them.
GM had a similar system.
Yes,
for a
they
while
did.
there,
The
right?
GM mild hybrid systems that were on Chevys and so forth, basically the same thing, a supersized motor replacing the alternator. It was not, but that was not married with a 48-volt electrical system for the whole vehicle.
Right.
And it didn't go over very well. So I don't think they'll sell the vehicle based on the fuel economy that system will deliver at this point. But it opens themselves up to a lot of new technology.
And they do still have the diesel, or they don't?
the V6.
Yeah,
The 3
they still do.
diesel,
There, it's interesting at the Detroit Auto Show. Both the new Ram and the new Silverado were shown. The Silverado, in my opinion, has a lot more technical features that are kind of like eye-popping, and it's a newer way to do a truck in some ways. But I have to tell you, the rank and file all went for the Ram, largely because of the interior. Not just the touchscreen, but they just thought it looked so much richer. Did you think the interior really looked that nice?
I wasn't as wild as, kind of what you told me everybody else seemed to be.
They went crazy over
I mean, the truck, it was a nice truck, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't very excited about it, to be honest with you. I drove really, really nice, and it's kind of what I expected for this Ram to be. It did meet my expectations, but it wasn't mind-blowing. So, I mean, the interior's really nice. I mean, it's cool. In the Longhorn version, they made it a point to let us know that in, the wood dash, it's branded for each truck. It's really branded in
You mean
there.
it's really branded?
Yeah, in the
Okay.
woods.
Who gets that job?
What's branded into the wood?
It's like they brand Laramie Longhorn.
So it's burned in.
And into the dash on the wood.
Saves me from having to do it.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
there's how many configurations that you can get in this truck? There's 6 trim levels, and then there's 30 different configurations you can choose from or whatnot. So
That's the world of pickup trucks.
Some of the some of the interiors were really, really nice. I definitely liked a couple of the colors that they set out to get, like the sunrise color that they put in, and this and that. But
That's so funny. I'm sorry. Yeah. What are you laughing about?
It saves me from having to do it. Like you would have done it if you had a wood
That was the joke.
You gotta get him one of those little wood
GC,
tips that
baby.
you get, you know. That where you
Can you get it personalized?
scroll
I
into
would pay extra for that if they would personalize the brand.
We'll write him a letter.
brands, whatever dash you have.
Get them on the phone right now.
Get him on a horn.
Get them on the horn.
Did you get to drive the Rebel?
Yeah, we drove the Rebel off-road.
Is it more than the Rebel was before? The Rebel before was pretty much just a trim kit.
So it costs less this year, but it's very similar to the 1500. And I thought that the suspension was going to feel a lot different, maybe, and it just I think there's still a little bit more that they need to do suspension-wise, dampening in particular. Something just didn't exactly feel right for a truck that should really feel, I don't know, just more off-road out of the box. So.
Did they get rid of the big ram? I think they did on the tailgate.
Yeah, so
that was ridiculous.
That was probably one of the things that I've really disliked that any manufacturer's done in a while. I mean, that really bugs me when I see those trucks driving down the road. That gigantic ram on the back.
I remember
so annoying.
when they did
and that's going up. The name imprints there are getting more popular, where car names on their backs are going down.
Right. So now it's just got this little ram logo, and it looks like very Transformers-esque. It's actually pretty badass looking. And the one on the steering wheel, it looks cool.
I remember.
I'm happy with what they did
when they first came out with that big ram on the tailgate. I forget who said it, and I wouldn't say a name anyway. But they're like, Ram owners want to let you know what they're driving. People want to see what kind of truck they're driving. And I'm thinking, like, not that big. It's very obvious.
I mean, the truck's pretty big.
That's just ridiculous.
That reminds me of a rant I just thought of.
Save it.
Save it.
I plan to.
One more thing before we go on the Ram. I kind of feel sorry for it in a way. Ford has always been number one, and Chevy's been number two, and then Ram's been like way down in third. But the last couple of years, they're chipping away at that. They've even outsold Chevy a couple months here and there. And now that they've got an all-new one, there's literally in a month there's a new Silverado. So
yeah, and the F-150 still beats it in towing. Yeah, so.
But they're also going to sell the outgoing Ram and the new Ram side by side for at least a year. They have a unspoken corporate goal of beating Silverado during 2018 and become number 2 pickup truck.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, it would have been interesting to see if there wasn't an all-new Silverado right now as well. I think they probably could have done it, but I'm not sure now.
It's going to still be a race. I mean, you're absolutely right. I remember the days, it wasn't that long ago, when Ram sales were 5 digits. They weren't that big a deal. Okay, we've got one more vehicle to talk about before we get on to our rant and raves and our viewer question. BMW X2. All right, everybody pretty much knows what the X1 is. They're BMW's subcompact, mini-based 5-door. We have one for a long term, which we really love. The X2 follows what the X4 is to the X3 and the X6 is to the X5. It's being a quote-unquote more 5-door coupe-ish version, although I think it doesn't quite get there. But they're claiming this is a sportier version of the X1. Ben, you went on the print?
Yeah, I did.
What did you think?
Sportier indeed. Same platform, same drivetrain as the X1. It is 3 inches shorter due to different overhangs and 3 inches lower to the ground due to a different roof line. But yeah, the roof line is sleeker. What stood out to me was that the kidney grills are inverted, giving a little more unique and edgy look to the front end, different than the X1. And they're targeting Evoque buyers. So there was rumored that there could potentially be a convertible version of this vehicle.
Somebody else is doing that, another convertible SUV. I mean, there's like at least one other that was shown somewhere, Geneva or somewhere. Anyway, so that's interesting.
Yeah, the pricing is pretty similar, and of course, fuel efficiency would still be similar. So it's hard
Are
to
they splitting hairs?
What's going to be a factor in one over the other? It's maybe
if you hate practicality, you would get the X2. If you want less luggage and less headroom, then this is your car.
How are the seats in that bad boy?
They're exactly the same as the X1. Legroom is pretty similar too.
The interior is really the same, isn't it, between the two?
There's small differences in. There's more shoulder room for the rear passenger in the X2, and slightly less leg room here in
just
front
so
and back.
straight
Just
on
cutting
this.
Real
that
close.
onion really
Even though the
thin.
number's bigger, the vehicle's smaller.
Yeah, numerically.
Yeah. Oh, well,
All right.
here we go.
Blows my mind, right?
Thanks, BMW.
You can't make too much sense in your naming schemes.
It's still difficult to get in the car with the. I don't know about you guys.
Oh, my
but
God.
Every time
It's
I
so
try
bad.
to get in the
Hitting
X1,
yourself on the B pillar.
sometimes becomes
the rear
invasive.
end area.
Really?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
never had that problem?
Never smack the B pillar with your back door.
I must ingress into vehicles differently than you guys do.
Must do it.
You
They
are
jump
quite-
2 feet first.
You must do it
You're
with patience.
graceful.
All right, BMW X2.
Ground
coming
clearance
to,
is the same on that.
A BMW dealer near you very soon. Our viewer question will up over the edge. Sorry, Zach. One of the reasons Zach is here is that
The
he
only
has
reason I'm here.
just
Well,
tested an unusual
Grant.
motorcycle, the Alta Dirtbike. And why don't you just take it from the top? What makes their bike special?
All electric bikes. So pretty much, we've driven, Brian, you've driven electric street bikes before. But this is a designated off-roader, so it's the MXR. They've had the MX for the last couple years. It's getting better and better each year. Now they have the Redshift MXR. It's got 50 horsepower, which is 10 more than last year. Basically, they're just configuring things within the battery and the motors to basically be able to bring out more power, use less battery, and also conduct less heat. So it just really piqued my interest as soon as I heard about it. And, there's guys out there that are backflipping these things now, and they're just proving that it's really a dirt bike. So the more I heard about it, the more interested I became, because my thought process was like everybody else on this, electric dirt bike. I don't think so.
Are they backflipping it on purpose, or is it like
On purpose,
It
indeed.
seems like with an electric bike, you might get into throttle.
And
a little bit too
that
much.
was the thing that scared me the most. I thought I was going to hop on it and just immediately loop it, like worse than two-stroke or like the biggest gas bike they make. But it's very user-friendly. There's 4 different maps. So map 1, for instance, is more low traction, technical wood stuff, and map 4 is just getting it on the track as hard as you can. It's basically compatible with a 350 cc. 450 is pretty much the track standard, so it's not quite at 450 power just yet. But for me, this power was enough, so it's definitely impressive where this company's at. Very cool people, by the way.
Can you swap the battery out, or you just have to charge it?
You can swap the battery out at the track,
Yeah.
but they basically, the gist that I got from everybody was, we're trying to stay away from that, bring a generator and charge the bike up. Some of you might be thinking, well, that kind of defeats the
Yeah,
purpose
exactly.
of having an electric bike, right? I don't think these guys are building these bikes to save the planet. I think they're building them because they legitimately see electric as the future, like that they're going to get more power out of these things, and they're just going to be a better bike than gas engines.
Does that tell you that electric bikes are starting to become the preferred bike for competition?
Not the preferred bike yet, and I mean, if you're trying to get guys in motocross to all of a sudden believe that electric bikes are the way to go, that's like telling guys that drive V8 trucks that
Prius is it.
that the Prius is what you want to take to the farm, man. So I mean, it's going to take a long time, but I mean,
But you obviously liked it,
I was
and you
so
liked it a
stoked on the
lot.
thing. I mean, I was so super impressed by it.
Is it because it was instantaneous power?
It's
what
the
was it?
instantaneous power. It weighs about 30 more pounds more than a 450.
Huh.
But I love the way that the throttle came through. You do kind of have to keep your momentum up more than, say, in a 450. You can kind of come up and just give it the business at the jump. You kind of want to really focus on keeping up your momentum. But I don't know why. I just felt very comfortable in it. After my first lap, I was in the 3rd map. So I just started,
Wow.
and then at the end of the day, I was in map 4. And then when I finished, I had about a quarter of the battery life left, and my body just had enough. There's a point where you almost make a couple mistakes, and you got to get your butt off the track before you get hurt. I hit that point, and I had a quarter of my battery life left still. So, I mean, it's pretty impressive.
Is it belt drive or chain?
Chain.
Huh.
Yeah,
And
it's
did the lack of noise? I mean, is there any noise at all? Or
what you hear
just-
is
just the
chain
chain?
slap.
Yeah.
You hear the dirt hitting the bike. You hear the tire basically scrubbing the dirt. You hear it trying to get traction. So I think that's another thing that I really liked about it so much is that because it is quiet, you can ride where you can't ride dirt bikes. Yesterday, I had this dude come out and scream at me again for riding my dirt bike.
In his front yard,
all
yeah.
I was literally doing was loading it into my truck, and he came out and flipped out. But, I mean, that would just put an end to that stuff. You know, you can build a dirt bike track in the middle of the city now. So, I mean, there's just so many positives to this thing. And, you know, with the technology only getting better.
But range wasn't an issue because this is not really an endurance bike.
Range is an issue for some people because let's say, so there's basically 3 different types of bikes. They make on and off-roaders, enduros, they make strictly street bikes, they make strictly track bikes. So with the strictly track bike, a pro is going to get about an hour or a half an hour ride time. And whereas for me, if I were to take this thing to the track, like I said, I still had a quarter left. But if you take the EX, which is their do-it-aller, you can get 3 to 4 hours on the trails.
That seems like you've tested a number of electric bikes over the last, 10 years. That seems like more range than what you had found up until recently.
Yeah, battery technology has been escalating rapidly. I mean, the last time I drove one, they've gotten much better since then.
So just like cars, solving the range anxiety.
Yeah, and the torque
issue
was the coolest thing about this bike, by the way. I think it was 147 pound-feet.
That's a lot, actually.
That's more than, I mean, it's incredible. So, I mean, in the next couple of years, I mean, these things are just going to be insane.
Thank you, sir. The Alta Dirtbikes. Viewer question. Jana via email says, okay, I've always driven a car with a manual transmission. Good for you, Jana. Typically, I get far better gas mileage than cars with automatics. I'm in the market for a new car. And not only is it very difficult to find a manual transmission, but when I do, the gas mileage is 3 to 5 miles per gallon less than the automatic. What causes this difference, and when did that happen? Anybody want to start?
Recently, I would say the last 8-10 years, that's been the case. More gears in the transmission, and just a lot of development money getting put into making them more efficient.
Electronic clutches and so forth.
Manuals are kind of old technology at this point. They're not dumping a lot of money into making them better because pretty much everything's going to be automatic at some point.
It's like 4% of the market. It peaks up around 6 or 7 once in a while. To give you some numbers, I looked up a Toyota Corolla. The combined fuel economy rating for a Corolla manual is 30. For the automatic is 31. And Audi, which still offers quite a few manuals, it's basically the same now between the automatic and the manual for combined city highways. So the automatics have gotten better, dual clutches, CVTs, all of that. Yeah, so, Jana, I think you're going to have a much, much harder time finding yourself a manual transmission car. And frankly, the only way to retain some of that enjoyment is to look for an automatic that's got some kind of a manual shift capabilities. Although I think you'll find once you use that a couple of times, you'll probably never use it.
And one with real gears, not a CVT.
No CVTs, please. Real gears.
Buy a Porsche PDK, you'll be happy.
If you break it down and try to think of what it's like to try and sell somebody on a manual transmission in today's age, like, we got this great technology. It's a lot of fun. You get to do more stuff in the car. You have to shift the gears for yourself.
And use both feet.
It's not as smooth.
There's more wear and tear.
It's not as efficient. There's more wear and tear. There's noise.
But you'll have a good time.
It's a little bit harder, but yeah, it's fun. So don't get the automatic.
It's fun on hills when people are 6 inches off your rear bumper.
You need 2 arms to drive it.
So anyway, Jana, with that little bit of editorial aside, good luck in your car search. So, Ben, you said you had a rant and rave.
I do.
Shoot.
It wasn't that. I'm going to change it into something of intrigue, actually. Something that's been on my mind.
Intrigue.
Just wondering what kind of car you took your driver's test on. And
that's a cool
out of all the cars you've owned, the one that's most lasting in your mind, and what you liked and disliked about that particular car.
So this is an interview. This is not a rant and rave.
I was going to have a rant, but I decided to change my mind.
Well, I learned to drive back in the dark ages it was probably a 1963 or 4 Oldsmobile 88. So it was not the biggest boat you could buy, but it was almost the biggest boat you could buy. And it's my dad's car, and we went out and did the driver's test, and you had to parallel park it, and I managed to parallel park this barge. And they would the actual driving course was on a 1-lane road through a cemetery. that was adjacent to the highway patrol office, so that the instructor never had to go very far. You always failed the first time you took it. That was like a given, so it took you 2 times to pass. But that wasn't memorable. When we took the test, it was starting to rain, and I passed the test. On the way home, I locked up the brakes at a stoplight, and I hit somebody in the rear. I didn't hit them hard, but enough to crumple up the bumper. So I managed to have my first accident on the way home from getting my driver's test. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Wow. And that's probably why they did the driver's test in a cemetery, is because at that time, if you got into a car, you were probably going to die.
Well, you had bias ply tires. They had no traction on wet.
Optional belts.
You had really crummy brakes. I don't think that car had front disc brakes. I don't remember, but all I remember was locking them up and sliding. And I wasn't going fast. I was probably going about 5 miles an hour. And in those days, the bumpers were so big and chrome. Even the car we hit, I don't think it did any damage to it, but it shook everybody up. And no police were called. We went about our way. My dad My dad was very disgusted and gave his our address, and I'm not sure whatever happened.
You're supposed to call the police in that situation, John.
I know you are. But my dad didn't, and who am I? I was just a kid.
Would you have done it when you got home, because there was no cell phones?
That's true.
There
were barely phones that you could put money in.
I felt so young and stupid.
The car that if you really care, the car that I guess I remember the most and wish I still owned was my 1973 Di Tommaso Pantera, which I bought used from a guy in Norfolk, Virginia. His parents bought it for him. He wrecked it. They shipped him out to the Navy, had the car fixed, and sold it.
Wow.
And I say had the car fixed because they barely had the car fixed. It looked good on the outside. It was a cream puff, but had a lot of problems inside. I love the car. It was, an Italian exotic with a Mustang engine in it, and it was one of Lee Iacocca's ideas. And what I didn't like about it, I guess, was that you had to lay under it every weekend to fix something. Not the engine. The engine was fine. It was a Ford engine. But yeah, I often wonder. I never kept the VIN, which is too bad. I'd love to trace it and see if it's still around. It probably is.
What color was that?
It was white with blue racing stripes.
Nice.
It had that kind of pseudo Ford GT color scheme to it. It did have a black stripe along the rocker panels.
Black interior.
I think that's all. I think they were all black in those days. And you sat 3 inches in front of the engine. It was very loud. And it would overheat every time, it got warm, but it was still fun. It was a cool-looking car.
They look cool cruising down the road. I've seen them on the road once or twice, and they're really hard to miss.
They were we drive a lot of exotic cars here in the show. And the thing that always strikes me when we get into a McLaren or just about anything is that you're often laying back and looking at the sky. You don't really see the road. Well, for whatever reason, the Di Tommaso Pantera, you sat very upright and you looked down over the nose. So you actually saw where you were going very, very well. However, your passenger would usually get car sick because the road would be rushing up against them. So my wife told me about 10 years later. That's an interesting question. What was the most memorable car you've ever had? We'll wrap up today's show.
Looks like we're out of
with that.
time.
No, come on, Brian. What was the single most memorable car?
Probably my first car, man. V6 Toyota Avalon. The front tires were so bald because I'd pack people in that thing and just come out of a turn and just mash the gas. Smoke would come barreling away, leaving school and stuff. So
it's a wonder you're still with us, but we're glad you are.
I appreciate that.
Benny?
I've had so many, I don't think I could narrow it down.
Oh, come on!
You can't think
of one of your old. Didn't you have a CJ?
I did have I had a '66 Skylark that was a GS clone, and it had Regal T-type turbo wheels on it. Mm-hmm. It was a gorgeous car. It was burgundy with a GS red pinstripe and a black interior, bench seat, 2-speed automatic. It was a 310 Wildcat, and I was in high school, and it had the huge Buick turbo rubber all over it. It's an amazing car, and it sounded great, but it was slow, but it was cool.
But it looked cool. Correct?
Yeah, first car was a 92 Camry, and I remember the day my dad brought it home for his, the family car. I was so excited, and then 12, 13 years later.
You got
I
it.
got it. It wasn't as exciting then, but
it was freedom.
That thing was we finally got rid of it maybe about a year ago. We just gave it away, or we sold it for whatever. I don't know what he sold it for, but I think it just more like one of those Toyotas. It just kept running. You take care of it a little bit, throw in some spark plug wires every once in a while. I replaced the distributor cap. Honestly, that's about it. We had a couple of motor mount problems. But other than that, I mean, it started up every morning. I got to school, unfortunately.
Brian Robinson?
I had an 1980 Vet.
I was
Unfortunately,
hoping
it was a Chevette. And it came with the auxiliary. It came with auxiliary braking. Like when the drum brakes were fading, you could just switch on the AC and everything would grind to a halt.
Didn't you have a Corvette for like a couple of days?
That's a story for another day.
Oh, come on, that was the story I was hoping you to tell.
All right, that wraps up our MotorWeek podcast 178. To say we got a little bit off subject matter today is an understatement. Thanks, everybody around the table. Brian Robinson, Ben Davis, Greg Carlos, Zach Maskell for a lively program. Joe Ligo back there manning our camera that's beeping for our... that's okay.
Told you we were out of time.
And Jim Bigwood, our audio engineer, who keeps us sounding crisp and clear, and our podcast creator, Bob Mixter. To all of you out there that have been fans of MotorWeek over the years, thank you very much for watching. If you are still wondering where to watch us on your local public television station or on Velocity, we have a new feature on our website at motorweek.org that now gives you much more accurate listings than ever before. Pull down the menu from up top and put in your zip code, and it'll pop up and tell you every place you can find us. Till next time, I'm John Davis. For all of us at MotorWeek, thanks for watching and listening to MotorWeek.
You've been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, WeatherTech, Hum by Verizon, RockAuto.com, State Farm, and Autotempest.com. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at motorweek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.